Hey, welcome everyone. Welcome to
Hey.
our stream, to our podcast. Oh, Mike, I just noticed you're rocking the Cypress IO t-shirt.
Oh yeah.
You got the old
Uh,
logo. Hey, welcome everyone.
old. Yeah, the
Welcome
old
to our.
logo. Yep.
Oops, I
The
forgot to.
OG.
Sorry, I forgot to mute myself in the browser, and I just heard myself say, "Hey, welcome everyone." So, welcome to everyone twice. Awesome. Short introduction to anyone who's watching already. My name is Philip. I'm a Cypress ambassador. Work at Slido. Currently, I'm on a leave at this point, trying to make it as an independent educator. So workshops, live streams like this, presentations, and everything. All can be found on philipritz.com. Actually, you can see the link to my latest workshop. So come and visit. So yeah, that's introduction for me. Mike, now the floor is yours.
Yeah, Mike Cataldo. Thanks. I work at Lattice as an SDET. Um, and yeah, previously I was at Cypress as a DX engineer. And before that, I was an ambassador. I think I'm still an ambassador. Maybe not officially, um,
I mean,
but
we'll
in
probably
in
get to the program,
spirit.
right? Hopefully.
Yeah. So yeah, um, that's it. Glad to be
Awesome.
here.
Yeah, I am sorry. I just got distracted with telling everyone at the Discord server that we are live. So I announced that to how many people. I don't know how many I'm waking up. Discord it's telling me that I probably waking up someone. It's worth waking up for this. Hopefully. uh,
Definitely.
yeah, so it's been a month since we talked last time. I think it feels like more than a month, right? Or wasn't it? I don't know.
I don't know.
What's the date today? It's 29th, and it seems like I think we talked about this, that we had the last stream on like 24th. So more than a month, but not that much. Yeah, a lot has changed on in Cyprus. It seems, at least. And
Yeah, there were what, three minor versions at least?
yeah, I think so. Sorry, wait, Mike. Sorry, can I just give me a second? I want to check out something. Oh, okay. No problem. We are actually live on your um, YouTube channel, but I forgot to hit go live on my YouTube channel. So hey everyone, on my YouTube channel,
Hey,
we're streaming
we're
that on
live for
both,
real this time.
and we're live for real. Because I was like, why isn't anyone watching? What the hell? And then I see someone is waiting, and what are they waiting for? So I guess they're waiting for me to hit that button. Sorry about that. Hey everyone, nothing that important so far has been said. We just introduced ourselves as we do on every episode. So yeah, welcome everyone. Uh, yeah, we were just talking about that. It's been more than a month since we seen each other on live stream, and a
5 weeks.
lot has happened. Yeah, in those 5 weeks in Cyprus. So let's maybe start with the traditional changelog chapter in our stream. I see, Mike, you are already spinning up the changelog. So let's take a look into what's new. So I think the 4 days after our last stream, this version 10.7 was released. So we got two
Mhm.
minor version updates since then, or well, three if you count the one that just came after. Um, and I guess the biggest news on the version 10.7 was the reintroduction of Cypress Studio, Who's excited for that? Let us know in the chat.
Yeah.
Mike, were you excited for that?
I was really sad when it was gone,
Yeah.
and I cried myself to sleep.
Oh, I hear sarcasm in your voice. So you didn't use it,
Never
right?
used the never used the studio before. I think it's neat. I mean, and I think it's it's uh it's it's not good for me to rag on it for not, since I never actually used it. But I, I guess the assumption that I've made is that it works like every other screen recorder, and I've seen, or rather testing, recorder, and I feel like I've seen them all, and I've tried. I think every time one of these products comes out, it started with like Selenium, but then there's also Catalan and others that claim to, trying to think of the I've used probably a half dozen of these different ones, and
Actually, live
it
on
always kind of seems
your.
like the same thing, which is like this promise. And I'm not saying that Cypress promises this, but a lot of times I see this promise of, oh, your testing is going to be way easier, and you don't need to have any code, you don't need to write code, you just
Yeah,
need to
no
go through
code
the process,
solution. Yeah.
and there's your test. And that's never really, never, at least in my experience, never been realistic. I suppose if you have something really simple, or perhaps you want to use that as a starting point, maybe you want to say, okay, I'm going to record and get the test, get something out there, and then I'll go into the code and kind of tweak it. I suppose it's a neat tool that way. Um, but yeah, I'd really like to hear from, from you, if you've had experience with it, or even from the community, in terms of, how has it been? Is it something that's a useful tool? I mean, obviously
Yeah.
Cypress brought it back. Somebody's using it.
Yeah, I've used it for like just to play around with it. So not really as I didn't use it for work at all. I just used it
Mhm.
to try it out, and I have actually come from trying these tools out. That was kind of my starting point with testing. I used Selenium Ide, which is
Right.
kind of similar. It's a record and replay tool. I've never been able to write a good test with it, and neither am I with Cypress Studio. But what it shows me is that when it sort of bridges that gap of knowledge when you're interacting with a page like a normal user would, clicking on buttons, navigating through pages, etc., uh, to understanding what's actually happening. That there are classes on the buttons. There are different ways of how you can select. There's a structure in that. There are different events. That there's different between type and click and double click and right click, etc. And that is definitely valuable. So I think as an educational tool is definitely worth it, and it's good that it's brought back because I think Cypress does a great job of uh, of bridging that gap between like not having any technical knowledge into like starting to understand what's actually happening. And we need to do that. We need more of that. We need testers to be able to understand what they are testing. It just cannot be black box testing. I think we mentioned that in the last stream, that this is a trend that needs to kind of I don't want to say die off, because it feels like it may feel to some people like they're not worthy or something. That's definitely not what I'm saying. What I'm trying to say is that there's lot of unleashed potential that you have when you that you have at your disposal, and it's just for you to unlock it with becoming more technical and understanding what's happening inside your app. And I think it's worth pursuing that potential and trying to look into it. And yeah, so more power to Cypress Studio because it enables exactly that.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. I think I guess one way to see it, and I don't know how many are in the community or in this situation, but I guess if like you're just starting out and you want to see, okay, how does I just want to be able to test this. I know what needs to be done, but I don't know what that looks like in a test, right?
Yeah.
So I'll use the studio and I'll go through that and then just look at the code and see what, because I'm assuming that's what happens, right? With this Cypress Studio is you go through the process, it records it, and then it actually creates a
Yep.
spec, right?
Yep. It generates the the code that you can actually run.
Yep.
Yeah, the reason why these tools are not efficient, like number one reason I think why it's a good learning tool but not really a good testing tool, is that an easiest way to demonstrate that is data management. So what do you actually do when you click through your application, you create some data, and then you have to run that test again? It's not going to work in the same way again, because now, before you started maybe with a clean slate, now you're not starting with a clean slate. You need to delete that data. You need to do something about it. So
Right.
yeah. testing tools. Cool. All right. Should we get back to the changelog?
Yeah, and Svelte component testing support.
Oh yeah, finally cool. Closing the big four, right? React, Vue, Angular, and Svelte.
So okay, so actually, I don't know if you saw this. Cypress actually had a like what's new in Cypress video, like a live stream. I think it was yesterday or the day before.
I caught it by accident. I didn't know it was there.
What's that?
I caught it by accident. I guess as an ambassador, I was supposed to know, but I sort of forgot. And and I just opened YouTube, and Cypress is live. So okay, let's see what they're up to. And they were showing the Webkit support, yay, and some plans for the future.
Yeah. So so if you want to stay up to date on Cypress stuff, go to our channels on YouTube, but also, and hit the bell, but also on Cypress as well. Click that bell notification and you'll be always up to date.
Speaking of that, I want to show you something. We haven't planned for this, but it's really like, it's sort of an overlooked news in Cypress, and it's about this blog post. Transparency is one of our core values. So Cypress made an announcement about like going full transparency with what they plan on, and they have released like Cypress app triage board, where they like transparently show what they are sort of deciding between on what they will be working on. There's Cypress app roadmap board, so you can actually look at the roadmap and see what is being worked on. And there's some exciting news, like improving startup time of Cypress and reduce time to download and unzip, which is really cool. It wasn't like a widely requested feature, I guess, but it's going to make a huge improvement. So and yeah, iframe support is planned. So they have become like more transparent. You can actually look at the roadmap and see what's going on. And yeah, Cypress has always been open source, which is great. I think that is one of the superpowers here. But yeah, the extra step and the extra effort they have made to become even more transparent and not only show like their GitHub issues and their code base, but actually show their plans, I think that's really awesome, and I hope they keep this updated. Yeah. And honestly, I think it's kind of a huge news that have been sort of overlooked. So So yeah, I wanted to mention that because it's really awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of us in the community will. Yeah, I think a lot of us are spoiled with open source, free and open source software, right? Like we say, well, where's this? I want it to be perfect, and I want this feature and that feature and so on. And Cypress is very passionate about the community and appeasing the mob in a good way. And and I think a lot of us might be asking, like, well, what are you working on? If it's not WebKit support, what are you working on? What's the status on this?
Where are
I
the
I want to know. I
iframes?
need these things.
Where's the hover?
Yeah,
Where's the tab functionality?
I want my
Sorry, I'm being
iframe
kind of
support. I
salty.
want it now. Yeah, I think a lot of us have that in us, especially if we're really excited about Cypress. I mean, we just had the Cypress verse verse playwright head to head, and Cypress lost again, sadly. But it's an indication that people really do want Cypress to do everything, and there's still a lot of areas that people would be happy about, and I think Cypress recognizes that, and um, they want to reinforce that idea, that the notion
Yeah.
that the fact that they are really listening and working on stuff. So
Yeah,
cool.
it's interesting. You mentioned that Cypress versus Playwright event. We talked with Andy after the event happened, and we were both like totally surprised by the results.
Yeah.
We actually were really thinking like how did it happen? We were both expecting Cypress to win, and Cypress didn't win. The really interesting part
Yeah.
there, which I kind of struggling to make my peace with, was the part about plugins. Uh, Playwright doesn't support plugins, and uh, and for some reason
Yeah.
Playwright won that round, which was really strange to me. And
Yeah.
but I tried to understand it. I tried to understand like why was this round won by Playwright. And as the live event was going on, there was this chat going on. I tried to not pay attention to that because it was, it's always distracting, and something goes to your head, and you're distracted all the time. You're just thinking about that comment. But one really stuck in my head because I looked, and it was like, yeah, Playwright comes with batteries included, and I thought like, oh, okay, that's interesting way to look at it. I don't agree. I totally don't agree, but it was interesting to see that perspective, and
Mm.
mostly because I think the Cypress is kind of unique in its position of being. Well, actually, that's not true. Like all of those tools are on GitHub. Like they are open source. Right, Playwright, Selenium, I think, even so, right?
Hmm. Yep.
Yeah, that's not what I'm going to say, but it's interesting that Cypress has made their tool in a way that it is pluggable and that community can contribute, and I feel like this has been Cypress's superpower since day one, and for the short time they have been around, the amount of plugins, I mean, like half of them are glebs, but that's not important. But the amount of plugins that can take the Cypress's functionality any direction you want, I think that's a huge value. And for me it says
Yeah.
like maybe this value is not recognized. So I think this is an interesting thing. Maybe this is something worth talking about in the community. That this is actually a good thing. It's not. It's
Yeah.
not like when you back in the day you bought CD and there were there was no way to update your software because it was already burned on that CD. But nowadays you can just use the power of the internet and use plugins, which I think is a good thing. So yeah, that was
Yeah.
kind of one thing, because you mentioned the event, and I felt like maybe this I like this for me was the most interesting point at that event, and
Yeah.
I feel like it's worth talking about more in like in general in the community.
Yeah. Well, I have a quick theory about that, about why um, I keep wanting to say puppeteer, but playwright won in that situation is possibly because how people interpreted that was um, was extensibility, but perhaps because like with Cypress is very extensible, and um, and that's through plugins, and there is a plugin, marketplace, if you will,
Hmm.
where you can contribute. And I like that. But I don't know if the fact that exists is the reason why it lost, because it could be perceived that um, because Playwright doesn't have that it's because it doesn't need it, or that the
Hmm.
available plugins, because there's no marketplace, it's or extensibility is near infinite, you know. And so perhaps that's what people are seeing. um I mean, I think the whole thing was fixed anyway right from the get-go. I don't believe that Cypress could possibly lose. No, but
Yeah,
I
definitely.
think you're right. I think you're right. I think there needs to be a little bit more education or teaching. I think that we can explain better how Cypress is how Cypress can be extended with and without plugins. Um, yeah, I don't know how, but I think we could do better.
Yeah. One more thing while we are on the topic, one more thing that sort of popped into my head after this event. Like it was clear from the beginning that the audience is mostly testers, QA, automation engineers, a lot less developers. And I think the Cypress's popularity is mostly because of of developers, and uh, and the way it fits their flow. Just today, I actually tweeted something. I'm going to show you because it was sort of a thing that I always knew about. I just wasn't able to articulate that, but it was the fact that Cypress. Oops, wait, I'm trying to share my screen. Here it is. That you can think of Cypress as a front end application built to test a front end application. Because it's built in
Yep.
the same way, right? On this diagram, it shows that you have your JavaScript or TypeScript code, and then you have a bundler or compiler. Basically, you need to make that code into something that a browser can run. And
Yep.
and this is the way the React applications are built, or Vue, or Svelte, or not sure if Svelte, but many of the major frameworks work in this way. You have sort of this compiler in the middle that will that you will then, like, the result you will run in the browser, and the result is just pure JavaScript. And this is the way how Cypress is actually built. So it's familiar with developers. Uh, but then again, I think it feels very unfamiliar to many people that have been for years have been using Selenium to not to build an app to automate an app, but to automate a browser, automate some actions in the browser, basically entering that browser from outside and telling it what it should do. And in this regard, Playwright definitely feels more familiar than Cypress. especially if you come
Yeah.
from that Selenium background where you use that tool. So yeah,
Yeah.
just a remark on the whole thing, and I guess yeah, I guess still a lot to talk about in the community about this. At least that's my feeling.
Yeah. Cool.
All
Yeah.
right, we keep talking about things all around, but we're supposed to be talking about updates. But I guess
We're
I
getting there.
guess we're getting there. We're getting there. So we're at version 10.7. We talked about Cypress Studio. So I guess nothing too major in the Cypress 10.7. 10.8. That's where the magic happens, right? Do you have it there? It's 10.7 and 10.8 was the big one, right? Where is it? Oh yeah, there it is.
WebKit.
Experimental WebKit support. So interesting approach. Have you tried it out already with WebKit?
I haven't yet. No,
Yeah.
I'm on paternity leave right now until November, so I haven't really given this a try yet. Um, and to be honest, I haven't really needed it.
Mm-hmm.
I think the fact that they didn't have WebKit support was actually kind of an advantage because it challenged us to really ask the question if cross browser testing was even um, whether there was even an ROI there,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because if you're testing across, say, Firefox and Chrome, right, before WebKit came along, you're going to be using CI, CI time or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And that's not infinity. There's costs to that, right? And not even just the cost, the financial cost, but also the time cost as well. And so one of the things that we did is we looked at our bugs and looked at which ones were actually specific to Safari. And I think it was like less than 1%. And so closer to maybe 0.5%. And so it just wasn't worth um, the time to do that. Um, but I know a lot of people were really excited about this, and I'm glad that we that Cypress hustled to get it out. I know it took a while, but I know that creating a driver isn't exactly a simple thing, a browser
Yeah.
driver. So
Yeah, I mean
kudos to them to
this
get it done.
it's interesting the approach that Cypress has used. So by default, what Cypress does is that uh, it will recognize the browsers that are installed on your system. It will open that browser and it will just uh, sort of enter in that browser, right? So this is sort of more complicated approach because as far as I understand, with Playwright, what you need to do is to, of course, download Playwright, but then you need to. I'm not sure if they're bundled in or they are, or you need to download them separately. I think maybe like the default installation downloads them for you, but you have sort of versions of that browser inside the whole bunch of things, right? So if you want to so basically, if you want to run against updated browser, you update your either the whole Playwright or the bundled browser within itself. Correct me if I'm wrong. Anyone in the chat, you'll probably be happy to. It's a minor detail, but the way how that works is that basically, yeah, Playwright bundles all the browsers inside. What Cypress did, and I think some people were kind of salty about that, like, haha, it's Cypress is using Playwright solution They couldn't even write their own. And I think that's, again, like, that's a bad way to look at it, because what really happened, guys, the power of open source gave us something we all wanted for so many years, right? uh, Cypress decided to use that bundled Playwright WebKit version, and honestly enhance it, right? Because within that WebKit browser, you get all of the timeline, all of the Cypress sweetness with console logging out the details of every command. You get to travel back in time. You get intercept. You get all of the nice features. So I think it's really an upgrade of what Playwright has done in the WebKit browser, and I think it's really. I think if there is even an arms race, if you're not like fabricating that by just comparing those tools all the time, I think the real winners are the users, and the real winners are the community who get to benefit from best of both worlds, which I think it's really great. At the same time,
Yeah.
kind of landing on the point that you had, I saw Gleb being kind of salty as he can be, and I absolutely love his remarks in that way. If he's watching, hi Gleb. He was like, and now I'm looking forward to everyone finding the WebKit specific bugs. 'Cause, like how I think he asked something like, I wonder how many people will find bugs in Safari now, or WebKit or whatever. And
Yeah.
I'm not sure if we had this conversation at Twitter or somewhere else, and I tweeted at him that yeah, I think about the same number as for Firefox, so
Yeah.
so we'll see how the usage of WebKit goes, and if it will be as popular as Firefox is, which is not very. But
Yeah.
but we'll see. I mean, WebKit is kind of different because it's been used on iOS devices. It's like the most popular browser on Mac machines, probably. I don't know. So yeah, I mean, we got some people in chat. Hey everyone, you've been saying hello. Nice to see you all. Tell us your opinion. Are you excited for WebKit? Is it good that we finally have it? Will you use it? How will you use it? Will you try to run all your tests on WebKit now, or what will you do with this information and with this feature? Let us know.
Yeah.
So yeah, news. Should we go back to changelog? That was the big one, right?
Yeah. Reducing memories, Cypress's memory footprint is a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
I know for long tests, for long specs, that can be an issue.
Mm-hmm.
I usually try to keep my specs as small as possible for that reason.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's pretty much it for 10.8.
Yep.
There are some other bug fixes. And then in 10.9, added support for requiring dependencies with inside.origin.
Yeah, I think
And
those are
yeah.
like improvements for side.origin and side.session. And to me, it didn't seem like there's anything that major. Although one big thing about the side.session was the cache across specs thing. So previously, you could use session to sort of save that snapshot and load it in the same test, reducing your test time that you spend on login. And it's also like super easy to do so because you don't even need to know how your authentication works, whether it uses cookies or local storage or session storage or some, I don't know what kind of storage. Basically, session will take care of that for you. The only caveat was that you weren't able to use it across specs. And now you can. I mean, you could if you used Gleb's plugin, right? Uh, but I haven't. I haven't got around to try it out.
Yeah, I haven't either. I think yeah, I'm curious to see what um okay, so actually my question is, I don't know if I don't know if what your experience is, but let's just say that you save cache across specs. Is there a way to actually, because this is like a global action.
Hmm.
I mean, it doesn't have to be. I know that you can change stuff like this more locally, but let's just say that you did it globally. Is there a way to then clear that cache
I think so.
manually if you needed to?
I think so. I mean, you could still do that before, right? Either on UI, you would have that button to clear it, but I think you could do it programmatically with Cypress dot session with like a capital C, Cypress dot session. I think there was a
Okay,
functionality for that. I
cool.
mean, we could try it out to see how that works if you want,
If we dare.
if we dare. I mean, I sort of have prepared. I sort of have that thing almost prepared, so we could. I could spin it up in a couple of seconds.
Yeah,
Yeah, let's do
yeah,
that.
let's give it a try.
So I'll open my terminal and create my project. So I have this neat little thing here where I do Cypress, and then let's do session testing, and then I do Trello app. And this will spin up everything that I need for a project. It'll install Cypress with latest version. It will add my Trello app to the project. It will install everything, set up TypeScript, and then it will open my VS Code. So I don't have to do
Fancy.
that all manually. Yeah, it's very fancy. Gleb has also a thing like this. I think it's called CLY. So it's so if you need something like that, you can check it out. But I decided to write my own. So here I have a spec, and it seems that we can do npm start for the app, npx cypress open. Hey, look at that! It's my first time with 10.9. And let's do this. And okay, we start to test. So I have my browser over here. I have my spec over here. Let's make it bigger so you can see that. And no tests. And now I'll go to another repo. I think I have that quite well prepared in the Playwright versus Cypress rematch. Yeah. CC pattern. Logging in. Yeah. This is the one. All right. So I have no need for tags. Caching login session. That's what I wanted. That's what I wanted. Caching login session. Oh, I need to set the experimental flag. And let's do that. So set it to true. All right. Okay, I need to create that user. So obviously, don't ever submit your login details into Codebase, but this is not going anywhere, so it's okay. I'll create that account, and now when I rerun my test, I should be able to. Yeah, okay. So now I have this very simple test. I have a describe block. I have CY session over here. And in that session, I have my login sequence, right? I open my login page. I fill in the email. I fill in the password, and then I check whether the document has cookie Trello token, which is the authorization token. I could probably do the validation of successful login in some other way, but this is how I would do that. And then I'm using CY visit to log in first time and log in second time. So when I run that, it's going to take like 1 second. If I were to delete that session, then it would take 3 seconds. So we're saving some good time here. Now I wonder if we were to copy this test, create another spec and do spec number 2, CYTS, do the same thing over here. And if we were to, let's test it out, right? I'm going to close this. I'll close the Cypress and do npx cypress run to run all those specs and see how long it takes. And we can compare if when we cache those sessions across the specs, how long will that take? So now we got like 2 seconds for each spec, 4 seconds in total, like the runtime. Oh, sorry, I used the session login. Shouldn't have. Let's comment this out. Run that again. See how long it takes. So we got 3 seconds for the first test, 3 seconds for the, or 2 seconds for the second test, and now we have like 5 seconds here, right? Here it is. And awesome. So let's, okay, how do we actually cache those sessions across specs? Let's take a look. Session.
It's just cache across specs.
Yeah, but where do I put that option? ID setup options across cache across specs. So that's like in the option object, right? And what do can I pass it as a second object?
I just assumed. Oh, gotcha.
ID
okay.
setup and options. Oh, okay, I get it now. I think it should be like this, right? So we got name, we got the setup, and now we have the options, and cache across specs should be true. Is that going to work? Expected 1 or 2 arguments, but got 3.
Right. Well, if you have TypeScript enabled, it should.
Not sure if I have it set up properly, but it says that it's expecting 1 or 2 arguments, so it seems like the thing is running. Oh wait, did I? Oh yeah, I put it in the wrong place.
Oh, did you put that maybe in the before
yeah,
each?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, yep.
All right, so let's fix this as well, and now let's see the results. I'm wondering what will happen. I think we got an extra thing here. All right, let's save both of those tests. So we are at 5 seconds, right? So let's see what this will do. So obviously the first one will do the login through UI, so that's not going to change. But the rest of those should take less, and it seems like it's already happening. 2 seconds. Ooh, nice. So we have gone down to 3 seconds. Obviously we could test it a couple of times, but look at this. Like the second spec just got something under 1 second. Before, when we were logging in manually, it was 2 seconds. So, and this one was 3. The first one always takes a little longer. It's interesting.
And in spec 2, did you have to call sci.session? You had to call that with login, right?
I always do. I always need to have this command, because that's like, so basically the way that works, as far as I understand that, is when you have that sci.session, Cypress will look at it, and it will take a look and say, oh, this is sci.session, and the name of that session is called login. Now, do I have a login session cached somewhere or not? If I don't, I run this sequence of commands, this whole setup, and then cache it. If I do, I don't need to run this again. I'll just take the cache, apply it in the browser, and continue. So I need to have this in order for Cypress to make that decision. I mean, you've been working on the sci.session, right? So
Yeah.
So do I understand that correctly? Because that like intuitively makes sense to me.
So let's just say now that you were to run spec 2 first. What if you ran spec 2 before you ran the first spec? Like, what if you ran them out of order?
I think what would happen would be that, like, when these two run, sci.session will do login in the first test, in the first id block of the first spec. Right? It's going to go through that sequence. It's going to go to visit, login.
Yep.
Yeah, it's going to do that anyway, right? But it's not going to do that for test number 2 over here and for none of the tests in spec 2. As soon as we have that cache across specs, right? Yep. So the order doesn't matter. It would still, like, the result would be the same. The first time, this Cypress will find a session that's called login. It will run this session, and then the second time it will find it. It's going to just take it from cache.
Yep. Cool. I think in a situation like this, I would probably end up putting a before each just globally in the support rather than in each one, and then that would just ensure that it's always being done.
Oh yeah.
But
I mean, totally, this is bad test design. Like, this is just for demonstration purposes, right? We got 2 specs that have the same names, same setup, same everything. I mean, with the global before each, I would be cautious, because I might not want all of the tests to test with the same user, especially if I test like things like, I don't know, password reset or logging in or inviting another user and then making sure that invited user has the experience they should have, or juggling with multiple users, etc. I would probably
there are ways around that.
Oh yeah.
One of the things that you can do is one of the ways that I've done it is I've actually passed in. So I would put this in a global before. I'm not saying that, like, obviously this is for demonstration, so this is not like, but if we were to do that, I would say we do a global before each, and then make this sci.session conditional on a parameter, Cypress configuration, which can be set at a test or suite level.
Okay. So you would have this. All right. So
That's
you would
how I
have this in the e2e.ts, and then in here, if you want to, let's say this, if you want to have a test not logged in, then you would have a configuration object where you would have env and say
env,
and logged in false, and then have this like sort of in a condition, right? So if Cypress dot env. What is it?
Yep.
Logged in
Logged in.
is false. So something like this. Ah, sorry.
Well, you could just do if logged in, right? Yeah.
Oh yeah,
So
sorry. If logged in, sorry.
no, because it would
If
be
logged in
right. Because it would
true.
be in the true,
Yeah, I messed up the condition.
and
Sorry.
then
Flip the
yeah,
switch in my
and then
head.
that would ensure. But yeah, and that's so. My original question was like, is there a way to actually clear that cache manually? I don't remember
I think so. Let me
if
take a
there
look into
is,
documentation because I
but
think we'll
you know,
find answer
maybe
there.
that's a
I
that could be an edge case, but
Cypress Session. I think this is what's here. So we got cy session command, right? But we also have a Cypress Session API, and that Cypress Session API has this one: clear all saved sessions. And this is what you
nice.
can.
Okay, cool.
This is what you can do. Clear all saved session and rerun current spec file. Okay, so this can also be the clear all sessions. So we got a button in the UI, yeah, and this is, I guess, something you would put in your test.
Cool.
So you do else. No, actually, that doesn't make sense. No, but yeah, if you wanted to clear those, you would use this. All right, that's pretty neat. Well, one thing I have. I started writing a blog. Hopefully, I can finish it until next week. I wanted to sort of point out one thing with the usage of page objects, our favorite topic, and that's like the login sequence is often like the first page object you write, and you then run it before every test you have, right? Well, not that. What I'm trying to say, that's kind of a pattern you can sort of see happening in different companies and different code bases. Not to say that there's anything wrong about this. Obviously, there are situations where you need to do that, depending on the tool set you have, depending on the application you're testing, etc. But also, what this session is essentially the same thing. You have your sequence, and we have it in a before each, maybe even global before each, right? Where we want to run that login because the whole application is behind login. So all of our tests, or maybe 90% of our tests, need to be behind login. So why just not wrap it in a session? And that way you don't go through UI all the time. You just go once, and then anytime you use that, or maybe why not just wrap it in a custom command, which you can call whenever you want, or do things like this. And this is really nice, actually, and run it whenever you need. So yeah.
Yeah. I think what I'm now what kind of comes to mind is, and you kind of touched on this in a tweet. I think I didn't read the whole thread, but like I think it's also, in order to use this effectively, you kind of have to. It's also important to understand how your application works under the hood in terms of what's being cached locally, and then what information is being saved, in the back end, right? So in my case, there actually isn't really a lot that's being done on the front end. So session wouldn't really capture a whole lot, at least in terms of the things that I need to test. A lot of it is done through just like the API, or if absolutely necessary, through a database, like seeding the database, or even writing to the database if it's really necessary. So yeah, so I think looking at things like, as you're using your application, having dev tools open and looking at what's actually being saved in terms of, what would it be like, with session, it's like cookies and
Mhm.
session data, local storage, right? Um, and yeah, inspecting that as you're using your application so that you can know, as okay, as I'm doing this, what are the things that are accumulating in local storage and are changing in local storage, and then from there you can kind of use that as a starting point to understand, okay, well, how can session help me in this situation?
Yeah, sorry, I'm smiling on the comment because someone said finally some good content on the internet, and I know the author, so love you, Camille. That's my friend. He's
Awesome.
awesome. All
Awesome.
right,
Thank you.
let's move on. Nobody asked about the hat yet. Everyone is asking about the hat. Everyone is asking about the hat. I made it myself because I've been raving about Cypress hats for quite a long time, and it was always T-shirts and no hats. So I decided I need to make my own. So this is not for sale, but I'm really considering launching my own merch because of the hat. Not sure if
Do
I,
it.
if not
That'll
sure
be
if
your side
that's
hustle. I'll be your
yeah.
first customer.
Not sure if that's allowed. Not sure. Like, what are the copyrights on Cypress logo, etc. I need to look it up and then maybe
No,
I'll
it's open
launch
source,
something.
man.
Do you think
It's open
the
source. If you
the
get
the
the image
logo
from their
is?
GitHub,
Oh, okay. I'll try to find it. That's a good
yeah.
way. That's a good way to look at it. Yeah. All right. But yeah, merch. Well, we'll see about that. Okay then. Should we move on?
Yeah.
We have a topic prepared. Remember, we prepared one topic. Well, actually two. We had like the changelog. That's the first topic, and then everything else is improvised.
We were going to talk about TypeScript, right?
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Yeah. We were actually going to talk about. We were going to be talking about TypeScript last time, but we got sidetracked. I don't know what we spent so much time
As
talking
usual.
about. I think we had questions. That was the main reason why like after hour and a half we didn't get to the topic of TypeScript. But yeah, TypeScript is awesome, and what I find also is that this is like, again, this is language of developers, not really a language of testers. At least not that popular. Just recently, I think 2 weeks before, I guess, TypeScript actually surpassed JavaScript in something. I don't know if it was like over usage or what it was, but it has surpassed JavaScript. Like, I mean, in anything, that's a huge thing. So, yeah, TypeScript is
Cool.
here to stay. It's backed by Microsoft, so it's probably worth learning it. And
Yeah.
I have some good news for anyone who wants to learn it. I'm doing a course on TypeScript, on like beginner TypeScript, and will be soon launching a workshop as well. But the course is going to be totally for free. It's going to be for Test Automation University. Great resource, by the way. If you don't know Test Automation University, you should, because it's awesome. It's this awesome resource of so many things. Um, and it's all for free. So if you're a test automation engineer and you want to learn anything at this point, really, it's a huge resource already. Then you can, and you get
Yeah.
a bunch of awesome instructors, and I've been saying awesome quite a lot, so I'll stop now. Basically, Test Automation University, check it out. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's jump into TypeScript. Um, so, Mike, do you use TypeScript?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I when I started years ago, before Cypress was a thing, I was using Angular and Protractor,
Mhm.
and that was that was and this was like brand new company, and it was a brand new project, and I had the option of using TypeScript because Angular was in the
Oh
Angular
yeah.
code was in TypeScript. So they had suggested, the other developers that I was working with suggested, why don't you just do everything in TypeScript? And I thought to myself, why is that even really important? Like, what's the gain? Like, why do I need to worry about types? And I think I was thinking about it from a spec perspective, if that makes sense. So in the spec itself, you're interacting with the DOM, but what's actually happening under the hood, like with like let's just say you extend your framework to do things. You create abstractions, right, to interact with your application, to set up data, and so on and so forth. It's that code, I think, that really gets that benefit, and that's something that I failed to see at that time. Um, and for me, that like from there's two benefits, and maybe these are just just obvious, but like from within the spec itself, sure, that can be a TS file, but you're really not going to see, at least in the way that I write specs, you're not going to actually see TypeScript in there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but from the spec, you're going to receive the benefit of TypeScript in terms of the documentation.
Mm-hmm.
So just like when you were when you were typing in, you were adding the option to the before each instead of the session, right? TypeScript screamed at you and said, "Oh, no, 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 we're expecting,
Yeah.
just 2 arguments, not 3." That's TypeScript at work there, right?
Yeah.
And so in a way, it kind of plays as your obviously it's preventing bugs, but also it serves as your documentation, right?
Yep.
Um,
Exactly.
and then the other benefit is what I think a lot of us first attribute to TypeScript, which is being able to see the actual types. And I think a lot of those declarations kind of happen, like I said, kind of under the hood, not necessarily at the spec level. And
Yep.
that's where I see a lot of the power shine in that.
Yeah. Um, I think the powers of TypeScript can actually go even further. Although yeah, the documentation part and the auto completion and everything, that's the big part of the appeal of TypeScript. Um, so let me show you. So actually, with the types are something that is present even in JavaScript. Uh, so what I like to show is like const, and let's do hello, and that hello will say hello world. Now in JavaScript we have this type of command or function. I don't know what that would
Keyword.
be. Keyword. Keyword is a good way to put it. And when we use that keyword with our variable, it will return whatever the type of this hello is. Now, if we were to change it to number, then the type would be number. If this was an array, it would say an object, because an array and object is kind of the same, although it's good to make a differentiation between those. And I don't know, if we say color and do green, then again type of hello would be object, and type of hello color would be string, right? So and if we did, I don't know, false, then the type of hello color would be Boolean. So these are some of the basic types we have in JavaScript. So these are present, right? But what TypeScript enables you to do is to add more types. So you can even create your own. And you might say, all right, that's nice, but why would I bother with this? And I have an example here for you. I'm going to create a function that's going to be called add. And then that function is going to take two parameters, a and b. Now what this function will return will be a plus b. So when we call that function and pass it 1 and 2, this function will return number 3. But if we passed it a string of number 1 and string of number 2, this function will return 12. And it's not actually 12 as a number, it's actually 12 as a string, because JavaScript will treat these parameters differently, or it treats different types differently. So without knowing what the add function does, it only says add. It is either going to return the sum of those numbers, or it's just going to add a bunch of strings together. And if you combine those, it's going to create a whole lot of mess. So this is where TypeScript comes in useful, right? So let me create a new TypeScript file and just paste this same function that we had in our JavaScript file just a moment ago. And now TypeScript compiler is actually running in background in our VS Code, and it's checking our code. And it's actually telling us that, all right, so this parameter a implicitly has no type. It can be anything. With the b, the situation is the same. So maybe we should define that, right? And we can. So this is what TypeScript enables us to do. Say that this is going to be a number, and this is also going to be a number. So when we are using this function in a wrong way, TypeScript is going to complain, and I actually have this nice little tool in VS Code that's going to translate those errors. Because you see, this is, the first line is what TypeScript compiler is going to say: argument of type string is not assignable to a parameter of type number. And the translation is, all right, I was expecting number, but you passed a string. So as soon as we fix those errors, both of them, now we're all happy, and it's all good. So we're not going to get into a situation where accidentally, instead of adding those numbers, we are going to be merging them as a string. Now, TypeScript enables you to create your own types. So similarly to when I declare a variable or a constant, in this case, I can declare a new type. So let's create a new type called even numbers, or maybe just even number. And I'm going to say that this even number is number 2. So if I say that this add function as a parameter is going to take, it should be a type of even number, then it is going to complain. I was expecting number 2, but you passed number 1, so what the hell, man? All right, so when I pass 2, it's all good. Of course, this is like very primitive use, and we can create very complex types, and there are various different ways of how we can use TypeScript. One, like very easy one, is to use pipes to sort of define whatever that number can be. So even numbers, let's call it even numbers, and let's put 2 or 4 or 6 or 8. Now when we say that parameter a take even numbers, then it's going to accept anything from those options, and it's actually going to autocomplete for me in VS Code, which is neat. So if I type 8, it is type of one of those even numbers, and I can accept it. If I typed 10, it is an even number, but I haven't defined it, so it's going to fail. So yeah, this is what TypeScript does for us. Now, what it does in Cypress, maybe we can talk about that. Of course, one thing we already mentioned, and that's the that's that is the what was it, like the autocomplete of TypeScript Cypress commands, right? So when I type cy, it's going to suggest all of these commands that I have here. And the reason why that is that because all of these commands actually are defined by TypeScript, and if you click on them, you can actually get to that definition. Now, this is where it looks more complicated, right? It has all of these different things going on here. Like, well, these are just comments, but you see that this is kind of complicated. So TypeScript can be quite complex, and it is quite complex, but you can start off easy. And one thing that's really cool about TypeScript is that you don't really have to have everything strictly typed. You can sort of go gradually, right? So, for example, if you add this ts ignore, then basically TypeScript is going to ignore this next error. So if you need to move slowly and slowly transition your code base from JavaScript to TypeScript, then this is the way of how you can do that. So yeah, I mean that's sort of an intro for TypeScript. It's not an intro. I've been talking quite a long time, but yeah, this is what TypeScript can do for you, and it can do much more.
Cool.
So yeah,
one of the things that I've done, that I've used TypeScript for, is I'll actually, so I have like a whole module for just setting up data, because there's a lot of different entities, things that I need to create in order to set up a test. And the way that I do that is through the backend API. And that backend actually has, they declare types. So there's actually, and the types essentially tell you what is the shape of what's the shape of the payload sent to this particular this particular resource, route, right? Not route, but
yeah, they're like the response body, or something like that.
So if I'm going to set up data, but I have no idea how the backend works, or if the backend has changed, right, in terms of in terms of certain endpoints, right? Certain endpoints maybe don't exist, or the way that you use them, that's usually reflected in there, at least we hope, reflected in the types for that backend, for that API. And so so what I do is I actually import the types from the backend. And so that way, whenever I'm setting up data, I'm doing it the way that the backend says to do it. So essentially it acts as a contract between my automation and the API that I'm interacting with. So it doesn't necessarily have to be, when you're using TypeScript, it doesn't necessarily have to be your own types that you're leveraging. It can be types for external services or other services, internal even.
Exactly.
And
yeah.
with
that's what I wanted to show as well, actually. Just a short demo. So in here in this test that I have here, what I'm doing is I'm using request, but I'm sort of casting the type from my source code into this request. So what this is using, so I'm in my test now, but if I click to take a look into the definition of this type, I have this interface where it's defined that this board, that it actually, this resource called board actually has an ID of number, start of boolean, name of string, etc., etc. And And when I cast it and start writing assertions like this, I got the autocomplete. So let's say I need to have an ID, I need to have, I don't know, a name. But also, when I'm a developer and I change something and I decide, like, all right, this is not something we're not using anymore, let's delete that, my test is immediately going to start complaining about this. Like, there is
Yep.
no type of ID anymore on my in here. So without even running this test, we're getting that feedback, and it's really what's really cool. You can sort of create a CLI script that will check all the files for you. And if you have any errors, it can even prevent you from committing those. So there are like these pre-commit hooks, which will run. They will run
Yep.
very fast. And when they do, of course, depending on the size of the project, right? But when they do, they can sort of
Yeah.
prevent you to even commit the wrong code or the code that contains TypeScript errors. So just wanted to show a
Cool.
live demonstration of what you've been saying, because I just took those types from the application itself. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you imported it somewhere at the top, like at the
Oh yeah,
top of
yeah.
this.
It's at the top. Let me show you. Here it is.
Yep.
So I'm importing
Cool.
that from the Trello app in the board.
Yeah. Cool. Awesome. Awesome. Yep. That's it. That's great. Oh, and then also too, I think it's good to show that Cypress also uses TypeScript.
Yep.
And a lot of times I don't really like what you're going to see on the documentation, especially if you're not using the latest version, isn't necessarily going to be the case with the version that you're using. So if you do fall behind, because like right now, I mean, I went on a paternity leave anyway around the time that that version 10 came out. But so I'm not on version 10. So there are going to be some things that are different than on my project than it is explained on the official docs. So one of the things that I'll do is I'll actually leverage the types, Cypress types. So if I maybe don't I'm trying to use, I can't think of any specific example,
Yeah.
but if something changes in 10, and it's not working according to the docs, I'll actually fall back on, well, in some cases, I'll just refer right to the types
Yep.
instead of opening the docs because it's convenient from the IDE. So,
Yeah, I think Cypress kind of already did that, or although that functionality came from the JS doc, where if you're typing, so those were the comments that I was showing in the Cypress documentation. So the JS doc is sort of this special comment that enables you to either show mini documentation, links to the documentation, example of how you can use that, and these things are sort of typed with this at symbol. They're the tags, and there's a tag that's
mhm.
called deprecated, and that what it will actually do in VS Code visually, it will just cross over that command, and it says like, this is deprecated, stop using this. And they did Cypress did that actually
Yep.
for the route and server
Yep.
command, as it was deprecated in favor of intercept.
Yeah, I was hesitant to use intercept. I didn't want to. I was like, I don't need intercept. The routes that I'm setting up are really simple. But then when they did that, I was like, this looks bad. I don't really want to use something that's deprecated. It looks terrible. It's gonna annoy me if I see this in my code all the time. So I said, all right, fine, I'll switch to intercept.
Yep. Uh, all right. So yeah,
Cool.
that's sort of an intro to the TypeScript, but more is coming. So stay tuned for that. All right. Should we wrap it up?
Cool. I think so.
All right, then.
Do it.
Well, thanks. Thanks everyone that came today. Thanks for watching
Yeah.
today's episode of Code Review Podcast. We'll see you in a month, I guess, in 4 weeks or something. We'll find a date. We'll let you know either on the Discord or the social networks, wherever we are. You can find us on Twitter and LinkedIn. We'll be happy to connect with you.
Yep.
Uh, so yeah.
For sure. Yeah, and don't forget about the Discord. I'm sure we've mentioned that. But we didn't do the Slido thing today,
Oh
but
yeah, that's
maybe
true.
next time we'll do that. But if you do have any questions between now and then, either ask on the Slido if you happen to have the link, or just go to Discord. What's the name of the channel again? Like, is it just Code Review?
Yeah, there's a code review channel which you can find on my Discord. So let me just quickly share the link to the Discord, and that's basically philiphertz.com/discord. And yeah, there's specifically a code review channel which you can where you can submit your code, and we would love to review that, take a look into that, maybe give some pointers, help you out with anything you might need. It's always a lot of fun, so don't be shy. And yeah,
Yeah.
see you next time.
Even just questions. It doesn't necessarily have to be straight
Yep.
straight code. Just questions, and we'll answer there. We'll answer on the podcasts. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right then. Well, thank you
Thanks,
everyone for
everybody.
watching. Bye everyone. See you next time.
See ya.